Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
You're listening to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie. I just finished reading a book. Who reads books anymore, right? Well, I read. I read a lot. I love to read. And I just finished a book by Martha Gellhorn. And it's a travel book. It's a travel diary. She was a woman traveling alone. And it's written starting in the 1940s and takes us all the way up to the 1970s. She writes about her adventures she had and the mistakes she made. And there were a few sections of this book. One was her travels to Africa. The last section was her travels to Russia, the former Soviet Union. And at the time she went there, it was the 1970s. And the thing that stood out to me, and the reason I'm talking about it here, is because the country was so poor. And I guess it was just a redistribution of wealth. The rulers took the good stuff and left everyone else poor. And when I say poor, I mean people were living in like one-bedroom apartment, two-bedroom apartment, in these big buildings, and there was no food. And when she went to visit people, they would pass around a plate of vegetables. And then 2 hours later, they would pass around a plate of mushrooms. And then an hour later, they would pass around a plate of something else very small and very unappetizing. And she describes going to the marketplace, the open market, what we call the shuk here. And people were waiting in line for 6 carrots. And she described going to a department store and the pushing and shoving. And when she got in there was nothing to buy. She ended up buying some cloth. And Israel, by contrast, is so wealthy. There is so much here. When you go into any supermarket, a big one or a little one, there's fresh food and lots of it. Gas stations have fresh coffee and croissants that are hot. The grocery stores, fresh cucumbers, tomatoes, every day, fresh bread. Fresh stuff every day, seasonal fruits and vegetables, local. It's amazing to be here. And the kinds of messages you see, and this is in the middle of the corona pandemic, right? People are putting the conversations here. Where's the best place to build? I want to buy a gift. Where can I get a special gift? Should I make aliyah from Israel? Should we just come now and make aliyah from there? My answer to any of you who are thinking of whether to wait or come now, come now. Israel, we're under control and we're doing fine. We'll be right back.
Israel is located in one of the most volatile areas in the world. Israel is an island of stability in a sea of war and unrest. In the midst of this turmoil, Israel stands out as a beacon of order and human progress. Each week we update you on what's happening in this, the Jewish state, a true light unto the nations. This is Jay Shapiro. Join me every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. Joining us today is a neighbor of mine. There aren't so many Anglos down here in Har Havron, but there are a few here and there. And this is a British man who's been here for a long time, Tzvi Ophir. Tzvi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Natalie. Pleased to be here.
Wonderful. Tzvi, I know you as the English teacher. That's how I think I know you, and probably many others know you. My children have all had you at one time or another. You're the highest level of English in the main school here, which is from grades 1 through 8. You're married to an Israeli woman. I guess you've been here many, many years. Why don't you tell me about your aliyah?
Okay, sure. I just recently celebrated 50 years of making aliyah,
Wow.
which was the second day of Hanukkah, 1970. And I remember the day that I left the UK, that I left England, and stepping onto the plane and looking down at the grey fog which surrounded the airport and the cold and the drizzle, and saying goodbye and arriving in Israel to very sunny skies, similar to what we are enjoying today. So that was probably the first shock. First of all, Israel exists, and secondly, it's a nice country. I mean, the weather is nice.
How old were you back then?
I was 8 years old at the time. I mean, I'd already been for 3 years in the schooling in England, and when I arrived here, I went straight into Kita Gimel in Jerusalem. We lived in the absorption center of Mevaseret Zion. We were actually one of the first 27 families there.
You were a little boy. You came with your parents, your siblings.
Right. So it was always my parents' dream to make aliyah. Actually, it came from my grandmother. My grandmother was the secretary of Chaim Weizmann, still in England, before the birth of the State of Israel.
My goodness.
And
wow.
Yeah, so she already saw the maps of the states to be. She was the first one in her community to put out a flag of Israel or Magen David outside and to have it out proudly. And out of her 5 children, 4 actually made aliyah. England was different then, and Israel was a very different country then. It was a much bigger struggle for my parents than for me personally.
Sure.
And it's only after a few years that I realized how much my parents gave up to make aliyah on an economic level, on a social level, and to start life anew here, which in the mid-30s is not an easy thing to do.
Right.
We as children, we more or less accepted it and did our best.
Yeah. Well, they did it for you.
My parents, yes, they were heroes, in my view.
Yeah.
And for us as children, we adapted as best we could.
Tell me about your siblings. How many of you came? How many were you?
Okay. We're 4 siblings. I've got 2 elder sisters and 1 younger brother. And my elder sister, she was actually the one that, for her, it was the hardest to make aliyah, because she had just been accepted into a very prestigious high school in London and was kind of yanked out of there. And for my 2 sisters, their social circles were always English speakers. Mm-hmm. And I was the one who grew up where I was surrounded by Hebrew speakers. So for me, the adaptation was easier, so to speak, at least on that level.
Right.
And so I've got 2 older sisters, and I've got 1 younger brother. My eldest sister went back to England already in 1982, and has been there since, and comes here for visits, apart from the corona.
Oh. All right, and the rest of you are here?
The rest of us are here. That's right. The rest of us are here, married, children, grandchildren. So,
wonderful.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay. So your parents had to make their way. They had a struggle. They are like me, I came also in my 30s. It's a struggle. But from what I know about your parents, your father became the head of the patent bar.
That's correct. My father, actually, when he arrived, he had to take the lawyer's exam here in Israel. And so for the first 2 or 3 years, he worked as a librarian in the Library of Law on Mount Scopus in the university there. And when he finished and he passed the exam, then he started as a clerk in the patent office and made his way up, became the commissioner of patents here in Israel.
Amazing. He is, that name is like legendary. It's very, very prestigious and really something to be proud of. And your mother is still around. I met her. I've met her several times. Beautiful woman. And,
thank you.
Really like those English manners. I just love it. I love it. Okay, so you grew up really pretty much an Israeli.
I grew up in an Israeli environment, but in an Anglo-Saxon household, which makes me kind of schizophrenic, which means that till today, I can read about 10 times faster in English than in Hebrew. I speak both at about the same speed. I still make mistakes in Israeli grammar. So Baruch Hashem, I have an Israeli wife who's very good, can correct me. when needed. I count faster in English. I dream in both languages. But it's easier for me to speak Hebrew because, yes, I was surrounded by Israelis. But in fact, when it started, or when I arrived at the age of 8, I remember the trauma of the first day at school. And the teacher introduced me in front of the whole class. And this was the first time that I saw somebody opening and closing a mouth and syllables and noises coming out. And I didn't understand a single word because my vocabulary was 7 words in Hebrew. And luckily, there was an American Ole Chadash in the class as well, who's already been here a year. And she sat me next. And he was my interpreter for the first year and a half.
That's nice. One friend. One friend.
Yes, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
And
for those of you listening, I told you at the very beginning that I know Tzvi as our resident English teacher, but I also know that he has recently developed a program of nonverbal communication. And we're going to talk about that. I just want to get the aliyah stuff out of the way because that is what people want to hear. There is a big spike in aliyah now ever since March, ever since the coronavirus, and the dramatic increase of anti-Semitism around the world. And people are lining up to come from England, from France, from America, from Canada. You are, I believe, our first British guest on the show. So all of you British Oline to be, pay attention because you have a live one here. You have a live one here. You grew up. You were so tell me. You grew up. You went to schooling here. Did you go to university here? Tell me how you ended up here in Susia, where there are so few Anglos.
I grew up in Jerusalem. I learned in the school in Ramat Eshkol and then in Yeshiva High School. And after Yeshiva High School, I studied in Kiryat Arba in the Yeshiva there. While in high school, I was a Bnei Akiva Madrich down in Sderot, next to Gaza. Then Sderot was a kind of sleepy, small town. While I was in Bnei Akiva, I was a Madrich together with a very nice Madricha, who later on became my wife. We've been happily married for the past 37 years.
Look at that. I didn't know that. That's
Shoshi, yeah.
Wow, okay.
We lived in Kiryat Arba for 3 years, and then we looked around, and in my heart, I knew I wanted to live in one of two places, either in the southern Hebron Hills or in the Galilee, one of the two. And so we started looking around to find some place which the community values are in the right place. The importance of education for our children, or that people are not in a rat race one against the other in the way of building, in the way of cars, etc., etc. We found Susia, and Susia was then, we were the 24th family. The eldest kid was 6 years old, and our eldest son was then 2 years old. This is where we've been living the past 37 years, apart from 2 years of shlichut in Cape Town in South Africa between 92 and 94. And when we came back from shlichut, or during the shlichut, it gave me a perspective of how difficult making aliyah is. When we came back to Israel, the first thing I did was to hug my parents and say thank you for having made the decision for us. Been teaching English for the past 30-something years.
You were probably one of the first English teachers around.
Here in the area, definitely, yes. Yeah. I taught in the school when the school was really small, then when the whole school was less than 40 kids, from Kita Aleph to Kita Hey. Today it's slightly larger with just under 1,000. And yes, I mean, you see a lot of different trends and changes within the English curriculum. Now, with all the social media, with the internet, all the different platforms, I think that there's a lot more English, and this is part of what we're going through, the whole change, especially during the time of Corona, which puts many more people at home.
You're right about all that, and you know, we're a religious, an observant religious community. And the lifestyle of all the students here, these families don't have TV, and they don't watch commercials. And the kids never before saw English. So now using the computers, it's really opened their eyes, and they see things like Zoom and turn off, and the word mute. You know, just these little things that now they're conversant. You know, it's kind of funny.
It is. I think that one of the advantages of the Zoom is the ability and the speed of being able to move around and do different things. the ability to use the tools which are given, and the amount of tools which I personally have learned over the past 9 months is staggering. And the more that you learn, the more that you see is out there. And I think that this is something which the children, that they can see how much more there is. As to do with English, I think the tools that we are using now, after 9 months of Corona, this is a stage which we probably would have reached in about another 5 to 10 years' time.
Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The Tamar Yona Show.
Tamar? She's sassy.
She's smart.
She's funny.
But she's also a real Jewish mother.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tamar Yona. And yes, I can be all of those things. But at Israel News Talk Radio, I'm here to bring you the news stories and guests that you may not hear anywhere else. Join me live on air Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays for the most unique and bold talk radio in Israel.
The Tamar Yona Show.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
Welcome back to Returning Home. This is Natalie Sapinski, and we are continuing our talk with Tzvi Ophir, the English teacher from Susia. Like Google Classroom, for instance, is one tool.
That is correct.
Yeah, and there's just others.
Google Classroom, Google Teams, and all that's around that. We as teachers are learning these things and seeing, wow, there's a whole new world out there. There's a lot more networking going on. There's a lot more meetings between people where in the past, a year ago, we would have to travel to a meeting, and that's time consuming, and you spend time, and now the time issue is unbelievable. You can hold 5 different meetings and one after the other without leaving your room, and they're all effective. Anyway, that's one of the benefits.
Yeah. It kind of makes us all a little bit of workaholics that way.
Oh boy!
you really have to guard your private time. Put your phone down and turn it off, because otherwise you won't ever stop. You'll just never stop. I want to jump into talking about your children and your son. There are, I think you have 4 kids, 5 kids, maybe.
5 kids.
Okay, so I don't know them. They're older than my children. The one I do know, everyone knows, is Nadav. Now, I guess he's your youngest.
He's the youngest, yeah. Okay, so I've got, my eldest kid is now 36, and my youngest is 21, and I also have 5 grandchildren.
Wonderful.
But Nadav is the special kid. Nadav is, what would you call him? A young adult, I think you'd call him today.
Sure.
Who has Down syndrome, and we didn't know that we were going to have a child with Down syndrome. We were in shock, traumatized, in shock, which afterwards we found out it's the most natural thing to go through. You have to go through it. The doctors weren't absolutely sure that this was Down syndrome. It took 4 or 5 days until we got the tests back. But as soon as we told our family, and nuclear family and extended family, that we have a special kid, their reaction automatically was, Baruch Hashem, that you live in Susia.
Wow.
And there was such a reaction of my parents and Shoshi's parents and siblings, that they all said, Baruch Hashem, you live in Susia. And the reason they said it was because there's a huge difference between bringing up a child with special needs in a smaller community than bringing him up in a city. Baruch Hashem, we were blessed with probably the best place that we could have asked for Nadav to grow up in. And everybody in the Shuv knows who Nadav is. Nadav is not somebody just to stay at home. He goes out and he makes himself acquainted with anybody and everybody who comes to Susia in his own special way. But the help and the support of the community, which is really needed. And even more so when he went to school. The regional school is here in Susia, and even though it's not a special needs school, Nadav was welcomed into the school.
Okay, now
and he actually
that's amazing. That is just amazing. I want to focus on this. This happened also. Suli's class had a boy from one of the area yeshuvim. You may remember the boy, Narai, I believe.
No, of course. Of course.
And now my kids are all, they were pretty much Israeli by that time, so they were just normal kids. And in my son's class was a boy with Down syndrome, and I think there was a special teacher with him. And I'll just remember this sixth grade birthday party. My son invited this boy with Down syndrome, and he asked me if he could invite him, and I said no. I said, Suli, I'm not going to be able to take care of him. And he said, oh, come on, Mom, he's great. He's part of our class. And I remember panicking over how am I going to take care of this kid? And what happened? He invited him anyway. And I was so worried and nervous and upset. And I saw Suli's friends, my boy's friends. Now, some of his friends I didn't like, okay? Some of his friends were kind of jerks. But I saw these jerky kids taking care of this boy, being so nice to him. They weren't nice to me, the mommy, but they were like unbelievable to this kid. Like shouting out for him, calling out for him. I was so moved that these jerky boys had this learned sensitivity.
Yep, absolutely. When throughout from Kita Aleph to Kita Chet, Nadav had, first of all, we couldn't have asked for a better class of boys than he was in. But this was a class which kept its eye out for Nadav the whole time, meaning that obviously Nadav had special needs and he was out of the class for different things, whether it was reading and writing, whether it was for physiotherapy and many other things as well. But he had 4 or 5 friends who were always keeping their eye out for him, whether it was in class, whether it was on school trips, and anything that would happen, they would immediately report either to the teacher or they would find me or find my wife, who's also teaching the school. And this was a special kind of friendship, which when he reached the end of Kita Chet, his class teacher came over and said, look, I don't know who actually benefited more, the class from Nadav or Nadav from the class. So we obviously said Nadav benefited much more from the class, but this was a class which grew up with a child with special needs and all that entails, which makes it so special. And I'm sure that these things continued with the children as well, the other kids in his class, as they continued with Nadav, and those that keep up the contact till today, which is already 5 years later. And they phone up and they visit and they come over and they phone him. And so Baruch Hashem, we couldn't have asked for a better place.
Yeah. Now you said this, and our listeners may not know when you describe Susia being a small place, and everyone knows who he is. I talk about Susia all the time on this program. And all the yeshuvim, all the small yeshuvim, I think are probably similar, but a yeshuv and a place like where we live is a village. And there's not much here. It's families, it's a market, a synagogue, and a library. My mother used to come.
And a swimming pool.
Of course. but everything's here. I mean, you don't need to leave, and children don't really need their parents. You don't really need to drive. You don't need to leave. So the children have a level of independence, and especially a child like Nadav and. The little kids also, they're pretty much out on their own doing whatever they do. And my mother and anyone not from a place like this, like my parents used to say when they were here, where are they going? Natalie, where are the kids? Where are they going? And I used to say, I don't know. Who cares? Where can they go? The basketball court or the store? It's that's, don't worry, it doesn't matter. So when you say this is the best place, that's I think what you mean, and everyone does know everyone else, and they all know Nadav. It's true. He's on the swing set. We all hear him, singing out. We see him, and we love him, and it's that kind of place here, just like you described the class, how they got more out of him. I think the community gets a lot out of these special people.
I agree, and I think that also on this thing that Nadav likes to go out, he likes to walk around, but there are times when he slightly veered off the path, like one time when he went into the yeshiva and one time there, but people have immediately contacted us to say, Nadav is here. Is this way he's meant to be? So because he's such a known figure, so this also gives us as parents a kind of level of security, which I'm not sure that we would have had he been brought up in a city. This is apart from all the help that we got from the regional council as well, in the way of all the different things that he needs, and from the school. So, and also from Shalva, the Shalva organization, where he was in Shalva in Gush Etzion for 6 years. Unbelievable people, unbelievable organization. Probably one of the most incredible places where I've had the chance to meet the people who've been running the place and work there, and the Shirut Lomi girls and the volunteers there, and most are volunteers, and doing Avodat Kodesh. They're giving everything from themselves for kids with special needs.
So tell me a little bit about that, because...
Okay, Shalva is in Jerusalem. Today it's a huge organization, and basically was set up in order to give parents of kids with special needs a kind of break in the afternoon, and sometimes on Shabbatot and during the holidays. Basically, it's a place where kids go after school. They have activities there. They, up till the Corona, had Shabbatot there. Summer holidays, they have a camp. They have camps in different parts of Israel. And it's a place where the outpouring of love and giving is something which you need to see in order to believe. And the people who are there, it's very few who are paid workers there. You have Benot Shirut Lomi girls there, and volunteers, usually between the ages of 15 and 18. Unbelievable people, and doing activities with the kids on a high level. Incredible place to be. Okay. So this was Nadav's kind of second home after school for 6 years. And then they come home in the early evening. And
so I'm a little confused, because I thought Shalva was a school. You're saying it's like everything except school. It's
exactly right. Shalva is not a school, but Shalva does have things for children who finish school. So it has apartments in Jerusalem, which are set up for young adults with special needs. It provides occupation, Beit Midrash, many activities. So obviously with the Corona, it's less than it usually is, but it's still going strong.
It's a whole operation. Okay, it's a whole...
Unbelievable. Yeah. There are a few organizations like this in Israel, but Shalva is probably one of the most well-known because of the Shalva band, which was in the Eurovision Song Contest almost up to the end. I mean, it's...
Sure, we all know that.
And so, yeah.
Stick around. We'll be right back.
In a time where feelings have become fact, where rational thought and common sense has disappeared, one man stands above it all.
I'm Howie Sobiker, your political hitman.
Political Hitman airs every Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. North American time, 7 a.m. Israeli time, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
and me, William Hall,
on The Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Returning Home. We're still speaking with Tzvi Ophir, the English teacher from Susia, about his son with Down syndrome, Nadav, and how he was taken care of here in Susia and with services.
Yeah, so for instance, Nadav would have, he would be driven to school. He still is driven to school. He's in his last year of school now at 6:30. And then he would have a van driving to Shalva in Gush Etzion and then from Gush Etzion back home. And this is a huge amount of money. This is part of what we get from the council. So obviously we're very grateful for, because this would be a huge...
Are you telling me it's subsidized?
It is more than subsidized. This is not something that we pay for. We don't pay for anything to do with school up to the age of 21.
Oh, that's amazing. Up to the age of 21. Okay.
Yeah,
So there are people who are listening today, and there are people on my aliyah groups, and a lot of talk about special needs and all the forms they have to fill out and all the testing. You know, I've spoken to some of these people, and they're concerned because they think it's the greatest in America. And I'm sure there are places in America and all over the world with a very high level of care for kids with special needs, Down syndrome, autism. But I'm here to tell you, and Tzvi can attest to this, you know, here in Israel, the level is extremely high. And the ratio of the care is extremely high. And because of our national service here, you have all these young adults that are in this field for their 2 years of service. So you're not just getting some older people who do this as a profession. You're getting the young.
Again, I don't know what it's like outside of Israel. So I can't compare. I can only say what we are grateful here.
Yeah.
And Baruch Hashem.
Well, look, I appreciate you coming on. I know how busy you are, and it's fascinating, everything you've told us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for the opportunity.
I hope people out there listening to you have some courage, because you've been here a long time. You've gone through a lot. And that's the point of this program, to give people courage, encouragement, and inspiration. And I think you did that.
And I think you're doing an incredible job, Natalie. So, mamash. Thank you.
Toda. Okay, מצוין. Toda rava.
Toda rava. Gam lach.
Hello, everybody. Joining us now is another guest, Nechama Stein, a 19-year-old woman still living in America, doing her aliyah soon. We spoke a couple weeks ago. We're speaking again. Nechama, thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Tell me where you are in your plans. I know you're 19, you're coming alone, but you already have a few siblings here in Israel, right?
Yes, I do. So right now I have 4 siblings in Israel. 3 are in Neve Yaakov and 1 is in Ramada Shko. And I'm working on, so I finished my aliyah application, and right now I'm, sort of looking for jobs and apartments and trying to find like the best neighborhood, for me that I would be happiest in. And waiting for the visa. So I'm on the final steps, and it's frustrating because I'm so ready to go, but it's COVID, so you have to kind of take things slow. So I'm being patient. Yeah, but that's where I am currently.
And that's it? You get your visa and you're done?
Yeah, I believe so. Again, this is my first time doing this. You only make aliyah once. But
that's right.
Yeah. So once that comes, I'll be ready.
Okay. When we spoke the last time, you told me that a lot of people in your community, in your specific Jewish community, have a plan to make aliyah. Do you want to tell me about that? Because I thought that was amazing.
Right. So I think my community has this sort of general idea, and the rabbis, Torsky, definitely push it. That Israel is the best place to be if you're Jewish. America is sort of our resting place. We're in exile as a nation, and that's fine. If the best place for you is America, then that's where you're going to live. But ultimately, Jews are happiest in Israel, and that's the right place for us. So, kind of in my community, I was raised with the outlook that Israel is the best place, and if I have the opportunity, I should move there as quickly as I have the opportunity. And a lot of people are on this, I guess you could say, this program, sort of, quote unquote, of the 10-year plan or the 2-year plan, where couples will, move to Milwaukee, which is where I'm from, and they'll say, okay, we're going to live here for 2 years. We're going to, let's say, get our finances in order, or we're going to raise our kids here. And when the time is right, we're going to move to Israel in either 2 years or in 10 years, which I think is amazing because then your kids have this outlook of we're only here like temporarily, like America's not our home.
Right.
And a lot of people are moving to Israel now for my community, so it's actually pretty amazing.
That's very, very healthy. It's a very healthy and correct outlook. Israel is the best place for the Jewish people, and America is a temporary resting place. And that's right. That's very healthy. It's very good. And I hope more people are on that 2-year plan than they are on that 10-year plan.
Right. And this is like especially true because I think things in America are sort of accelerating downhill at this point, just due to recent events. So if you're on the 2-year plan, you might kind of get out before things turn very, very dicey as opposed to if you're on the 10-year plan.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm making aliyah now this year.
Yeah, sooner, as soon as you can. I was just saying that earlier. Don't wait because things are spiraling out of control. There are things that are going to be happening, and I hate to say that, we've never seen these things before, but we've all seen this before. We've all seen this movie before, and it never ends well for us.
Right. It's just a
here we are in a little capsule of our own in Israel, and everything here is like micro, like things that are bad everywhere else, they're just not so bad here. Things that are good everywhere else, they're just 10 times better here. It's a country of extremes, but here we're a community, and you really do feel it. You really do feel safe.
Yeah.
And you know that you have. I'm sure you've been here. How many times have you been here?
It's hard to remember after a certain point.
Right.
But I think the number's around 5 or 6 times now.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So
what are your plans besides finding a place to live and finding a job? That's really all you need to do at your age.
Right. Well, I also think it's important, to have a bit of a, if you're living in the biblical land of Israel. So for me, it's important to also have a bit of a Torah outlook on it. So after I find a job and an apartment, I'm hoping to take night classes, at a seminary or just at a Jewish college or anything really, to give me that motivation that I need, because life in Israel can be hard and you do need a support system. That's pretty important, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the plans right now. But again, things change very fast as I'm learning. So yeah, that's where I'm going right now.
Okay, well that's good. That's good to know. Who's coming with you? Do you have friends who are also going to be making aliyah with you?
So I do have friends who are making aliyah, but not necessarily with me. So my boyfriend actually, who incidentally is a tall blonde guy from Philly, is going to be making aliyah about a month after me. But in terms of friends, I'm actually pretty much going alone, which is a little bit hard. Yeah.
Okay. But you have family here. You have 4 siblings, you told me.
I do, yeah. So that kind of softens the landing a little bit. It's like a safety net.
Yes, absolutely a safety net. You're not going to be alone. You're not alone.
Right, for sure. And honestly, people in Israel as a whole just care generally more about you just because you're Jewish than they would in America. If you have a problem, you can just ask anyone, and anyone will help you, which I think is just awesome. That's amazing. That definitely
that sounds like a dream, but it's not. You can't just tell anyone you need help. But I think you mean that the sense of community here is very strong.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be fine. Well, good luck to you. And I don't know how long it's going to take. No one seems to know. A matter of weeks. It could be a matter of months. But, definitely by summer, right?
Right, of course. Yeah, it takes different amounts of time for anyone. If you're single, this is if you're married with lots of assets, then it's going to take a lot longer. But I consider myself lucky that I'm doing this early on in life, so I only have a few things to worry about. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is, and it's smart. And, the sooner you get here, the better, because you will just assimilate, just like any immigrant to any new country. Go young, go young. Get your bumps when it's just you. You don't have to worry about children or anything like that. For sure. I was going to say, do you have any, I don't want to say any regrets, but is there anything that you are worried about?
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of things I'm worried about. Number one is obviously the language barrier. I wish, because from my background, you learn Hebrew, from the time you're in kindergarten, and I never internalized that because I just never did, but I wish that I had, because then I would actually be fluent. And now it's sort of I'm starting off completely new,
You will be fine. You'll pick it up. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Thank you. We're down to the end here, but I wish you luck. Mazal tov, kol hakavod, and welcome. Welcome home, I should say.
Thank you.
Okay, Nechama. Bye-bye.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
Howdy, this is Rita from League City, Texas, now living in Israel. And though my heart may have belonged to Texas, it now belongs to Israel and all the fantastic show hosts at Israel News Talk Radio.
Hi, this is Michael Solomon from Kiryat Arba, Israel. And why do I love listening to Israel News Talk Radio? Because I love listening to the interesting interviews they do and their news reporting that most other media sources don't cover.
Hey, this is Nicoleko from Malmö, Sweden. It gets pretty cold here in Sweden, so I love cuddling up with a warm cup of tea while I listen to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Frank Morris from Tennessee. Me and my dog Buster really love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.